All right, guys, today we're going to talk about some tools and some items that you may be putting to good use in the next 3 or 4 weeks, starting this weekend, actually. So, in Georgia, based on from what I can tell, the pre-rut is beginning and is beginning this weekend for sure, especially in the middle counties to the northern counties. I suspect that the rut itself is going to fire up early November and run probably till November 10th, 12th would be what I would define as end of the rut and moving into the post-rut phase. I think the rut itself will start or be at its strongest point between November 1st, November 2nd to about the 10th, maybe the 11th or 12th. So today is the 22nd, 24th. Today is the 24th, which means the bucks are on the move. They are out in the woods right now. They're making lots of rubs. They are actively managing scrapes, and they are becoming very territorial. They're probably even having some challenge matches. I would say probably not super physical in terms of fighting, but they are definitely at this point sizing one another up and having a few displays of dominance. I don't think the fights would be that serious at this point, but definitely there's some practice and some minor fighting going on. I know this is true because over the weekend when I went out hunting at Rattling, scouting a new area, there was an area in particular that we came upon, me and another individual, that had some pretty strong sign that there had been a buck fight there. So we also observed several rubs all throughout the area of a significant number, and came across a fresh scrape. So that tells me that was Sunday. So at this point, they should be full pre-rut at this point here in Georgia. So with that in mind, I've laid out a few items on the table here, and each one of these items I make use of at some point during the season, some more so than others. And I'm just gonna go over them and what I would recommend if you are going into the woods, what I think is very effective at this particular phase of the rut. So, the first thing I'm going to start off with is urine. Now, a lot of you are going to say, oh, urine's a waste of time, don't use it. And you would be, in my opinion, I don't really find a massive benefit in using pee. I've hunted and used pee for a very long time. My dad really likes to use pee. Nothing against it, Dad, if you watch this video. The point is I don't think you actually need pee to bring deer in. So the first thing I want to tell you, especially if you're a beginner hunter, is more attention to scouting, locating these deer prior to this phase of the season is what I would say is the most important thing. Solely relying on this to shoot a deer I think is a huge mistake. And in fact, I think this stuff can get you in trouble if you don't use it appropriately and in the right fashion. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about pee. The pros of this are, one, it can be a really good scent cover, so it can work in your favor if used correctly in a small amount. In my opinion, I don't think you need to use a whole lot of it. So on the right, I have heat or doe and estrus pee, and then on the left, I have regular old doe urine. I do have some buck urine too, but my buck urine is not in a can. My buck urine comes straight from one buck. It is a numbered deer. and I use that sparingly. If I were to pick out of all these urines, I would say this is the most general purpose. So if I do use pee, I probably use the doe pee the most, just regular old doe pee. I've found in my hunting experience that use of doe pee tends to attract either sex, and it tends to be more of a calming urine. So it's a all around, a all season general use scent aid. If you were to ask me how I use it, I might spray a little bit under my tree for the sole purpose of using it as a scent cover. I'm not using this to attract deer. The second one, which is what a lot of hunters probably make the mistake of using, is doe in heat. This stuff right here can be really good for you. It can be a blessing, or it can be a major curse. Number one rule, if you're going to drop this stuff, do not drop it until the rut is in full swing. It is not a good idea to drop this early season. It's not a good idea, in my opinion, to drop this pre-rut. This stuff right here can really mess your hunt up if you don't use it in the correct manner. So how would you want to use this? If I wanted to implement heat, I would probably start using heat the first or the second. If I thought the rut was going to be in full swing, I would use it around that time. And the way I would use this, it would be a couple of options. One, and this is how my dad uses it, which I don't disagree with. You can put this in a dripper and put it on a scrape and let it drip in a scrape when the rut begins. That's one effective way to use it. It won't drip at night, it'll only drip during the day. The second way you can use this stuff is and this is what I would recommend if you were gonna use this, I would spray this or put it on a drag, dip a drag in this stuff, and then as I was walking to my stand, I would have a drag behind me. Because if you know anything about how bucks seek does in the woods, what they will do is they will run horizontal to the main paths and to the wind. And what they're trying to do is just pick this scent up on the wind so they can locate a trail. So by doing a drag and dragging through the woods, it's going to significantly increase the chance that a buck is going to pick up that scent and be able to come to you wherever you're at. Be very careful using this stuff though, because if let's say you're going to your stand and let's say you make the mistake of spraying it on your boots, you can literally drag that buck all the way to the bottom of your stand and end up busting yourself. So if you use this, drag it to where it needs to go within your shot range, and then I would avoid trying to carry this scent to your tree stand. Another way you could use this is you could spray it, as you're walking to your stand, put a little bit on your trail. Make sure if you're spraying this that the wind is blowing in the appropriate direction. You don't want to be spraying this and then your scent, it be blowing across your scent, because it's going to mix. You can, pinpoint or give yourself a trail all the way to your tree stand. The last way you can use this is you can get up in your stand and you can mist a little bit of it and use it as a scent cover. I personally, if I'm gonna use a scent cover, it's gonna be just general old doe pee. It is not going to be heat. Heat is problematic in that, one, when this stuff goes down, if your plan is to see deer, you need to be aware that, and Timber's up here, we'll talk about her in a little bit. You need to be aware that, one, this is going to push other does away because most does don't want to be around a doe that's in heat. Two, I think this stuff brings in small bucks. I don't think this stuff brings in big bucks. I think big bucks avoid this stuff. So I typically don't use this. If I do, I use it very sparingly. I will use this. And again, I think this is a great scent cover. if used sparingly. Don't use a lot of it, just enough, you know. A common trick that my father and I do is we will get like a pill bottle and we will drop Q-tips in it. And then we'll spray, we'll either dump some urine in that pill bottle or we will spray some of this in there. And then we will close that pill bottle up with, you know, 10 or 15 Q-tips in it. And then we will go out and to our tree stand and we'll flick the Q-tips, you know, like 5 in the morning, flick it out away from the stand as far as we possibly can. And then, you know, maybe a couple hours later, flick 5 more. And then towards the end of our hunt, maybe flick 5 more. But the point is I'm telling you Q-tips, so a very small amount goes a long ways, in my opinion, for this stuff. You do not need a whole bunch of this. And then the tried and true method, and this in particular is my personal opinion. I feel like I have seen more large bucks and had more shot opportunities at large bucks. My dad would argue with me. The big boys, I feel like if you don't use this stuff at all, I feel like I've seen more bucks not using this at all. And if I do use pee and I'm going after a big buck, the only pee I tend to use will be pure buck urine from a numbered deer. So I prefer the code blue buck pee, and that's what I would use during the rut, or pre-rut or post-rut. Now, there is a caveat here. When I use peas, I tend to use them on private only. You probably got a camera shake there. Timber's up. She's wanting some attention. I tend to only use peas on private only. I've not had much success with these on public, and I think that's because the deer are trained or aware of this stuff. So again, if I'm going to use this on public, I'm going to use it very sparingly. I do not think a whole lot of this is going to do you any benefit, especially on public. So that's my take on urines. I'm sure a lot of you do use urines. My personal opinion is you don't need them. And if you are going to use them sparingly. And if you're going to use this one in particular, know when to use it and know when not to use it, because this stuff right here, it can be the one reason you won't see deer all day long. There is only a specific time of the year that this is good, and other than that, I stay out of this. Now, we're going to get into some calls, because in my opinion, it's call time. We're getting into the best time of the year to be calling. Now, this is my tried and true buck call. I have used this now for 3 seasons, and what I have to say about this particular call is it is highly effective, okay? The things I have actually called 3 shooter bucks in with this call in the 3 years I've owned it. And then I've called in a bunch of little bucks. And so we're going to talk about the various calls, and we're going to talk about how to call and what you need to look out for if you are calling. So first thing is, when I look for a buck call, I used to look for a buck call that had the deepest sound, you know, an intruder buck. So this is the Ninja Intimidator. And this is a very, very popular call. It's got a built-in snort wheeze on it too. So just so you can hear it. It is a very deep sounding buck call. It's a really good sounding buck call too. I have literally hit this buck call and had my bow hanging on the tree hook. And before I could put this buck call back on the hook and grab my bow, I've had a buck under my stand multiple times. So the first tip I have for you if you're going to be calling, number one, if you call, you better make dang sure that the next thing you do is you reach for that bow or that firearm and you get ready. Get this thing put away as quickly as you possibly can and get ready. You may be new to hunting, or you may be a beginner, and you may have called and not had any success with calling. But I'm going to tell you right now, it is the time of the year where these are going to start working very effectively. The bucks, they're moving. They're going to move a lot more frequently now, and that movement frequency is going to increase. So the chances of you seeing a buck right now are 2 times, 3 times what it was just a week ago. Okay, so put these things to use. The way I like to call is I like to do 2 to 4 calls, and I will do calls if I'm not having an eventful day. I'll do calls probably every 20 to 30 minutes, and it'll just be either just regular grunts. Keep it simple, or maybe a tending grunt, which is we'll talk about tending grunts here in a minute. Or even a breeding grunt. So a tending grunt is going to be just short. So, a grunt every 4 to 5 seconds. You only need to do it 4 to 6 times, okay? Then you have your regular grunt, which everybody knows what this one is just short, sweet, to the point. And then you have what's called a breeding grunt, and a breeding grunt is an 8 to 12 second long grunt. It's going to start off low and it's going to grow into a growl. So it might be you got to take a deep breath, but you basically want to hold that grunt for 8 to 12 seconds, okay? Each one of these grunts can be used depending on they're situational grunts. But the point here is if you're going to call, don't overcall, but don't be afraid to call. Second thing I want to talk about if you're going to call is don't call directionally. So if I want to grunt, I'm going to aim at the ground and maybe I'll grunt that way, and then my next grunt's going to go over this way and maybe it'll grunt over there, and I'm going to just aim it. I'm going to be very careful about how I aim the tip of this grunt, because it can be very, very loud in the same direction it's going. The second thing that I'm going to want to do too is be careful about the noise of the grunt. So if I grunt real loud, right? So if I'm like really, really loud, if you've spent any time in the deer woods, you know that bucks don't grunt loud. You know that does don't grunt loud. So if I'm grunting really loud, I might as well be, yelling at you, right? It'd be the difference between saying, hey, So pay attention to your volume when you're grunting. And again, I think the biggest tip I could give you if you're going to be calling, especially if you're going to be blind calling, is as soon as you're done with this, put it away and grab your weapon, because I have had plenty of times where the deer was on me. That's how I actually learned that lesson. I learned it the hard way, where the deer would be on me before I had put my grunt call down. So this is the tried and true grunt call that I have hunted with and called in the most bucks with. Now, I am testing 2 new calls this season, and the reason why I'm testing the 2 new calls is because I think that while this one's really good at calling in larger bucks, I think it's very, as the name says, I think it's a very intimidating call. So I have a theory that I'm testing out this season, and that is to try to find a younger, less deep sounding buck call. So I bought this call. This is the Brawler, and the buck that I shot came in on this call. He came in on some regular old tending grunts and some Estrus bleats. And you know, the thing about calling is the young bucks, you know, they don't have patience. So they're pretty easy to call in my opinion. That buck is no exception. He was probably 3 years old. Next year he probably would have been a really nice buck, but really simple. I'll give you a sound, what this one sounds like. So it's a little bit more tonal sounding, more nasally sounding. It's a good sounding call. I know it works. I called a buck in on it. Okay. Last call. And I think this is my favorite. Now I have not called a deer in on this yet. In fact, this has only been used on 2 hunts. Okay. I like this call because it replaces all the other calls. One, this is an extinguisher, and the extinguisher has a fawn, a doe, and a buck sound. But I really like the buck sound because it doesn't sound like an intrusive or a dominant buck. It's soft. It's a lot quieter than these two, which I think is a huge benefit. And it just overall has better sound. So, and the cool thing about this one is you can actually change your tone as you're calling. As you call, you can slide your tonal. So let's say I want to do a doe bleat. I'd flip to doe, and then what I can do I can change the tone. So if you know anything about doe bleats, we'll use the can, the tried and true. Everybody knows what this is. So with this can, you can tell that the tone increases through the end of the call. So, and you can do the same thing with the extinguisher. You can do it 2 ways. One, you can use the slide mechanism to raise the tone as you do it, or you can cup it and you can take your hand and push over it, right? So we can go like that, or like that. And then you could also raise the tone. You could go, which I'm not good at that yet, but I gotta practice that, but we would do it basically like so. I prefer using my hands to do it, just simply by removing it at the end of the call. And again, you can do your buck calls, you can do your grunts. You can do it the same way you do the doe. And you can bend around or you can squeeze. There's all kinds of different techniques that you can change the vocalizations for. Okay? This call. There's 2 ways to use this call. The first one is put your thumb on it, flip it over. Okay? I found the more effective way of using this call is actually to blow in it. I've called more deer blowing in this thing than I have actually using it the way it's designed. Okay? So I actually, when I use this call, I'll go like that. And I think that this sounds more like a fawn. And the reason I say that is because I've actually shot a fawn and it didn't die right away. And I had to shoot it again. And when I shot it the second time, it let out a distress call. I actually think this call sounds like a distressed fawn, especially when you blow in it. I have called in more does using this call, blowing in it, than I have bucks. And every buck I've called in on this call has been a little buck. I have never called in a big buck using this call. So, take it for what it's worth. But it's highly effective if you want to call does in, especially early season. If you want to blow in it, I feel like this call is very effective at bringing does in, because it sounds to me like a fawn in distress. In terms of the Extinguisher, and the reason I'm pretty excited about this call is it's going to allow me to do something I've never been able to do before. When I see bucks running through the woods or bucks that are chasing, instead of hitting them with a grunt, I'm finally going to be able to hit them with a doe bleat. And in my opinion, I'm going to be able to hit them with a doe bleat that I think sounds more realistic. So I'm going to be able to go. And I've been wanting to test that out to see how effective it is. So I'm excited to try that out at turning, chasing, or bucks that are looking for does, right? Not a buck that's chasing, but a buck that is looking for a doe. Now, if I'm going to use this call for buck grunt, you can blind call and call in bucks. You can stop a buck in its tracks if it's chasing using this call. You can also do a snort wheeze, which is just a on this call, which is one of the things I really like that it's built in. Or you can just do it naturally, which would be, you know, either way, both of them work. So right now we're in pre-rut. Buck grunts, they work great. Doe bleats, use them sparingly, but they will also work. If you were to ask me right now what call I think is the most effective, I would say the good old regular grunt, and maybe throw in some tending grunts. So remember, tending grunt is a grunt that is short, and it's every 4 to 6 seconds. So it's just going to be. So what a tending grunt is the buck's actually running through the woods. I guess you could call it a trailing grunt too. He's just going through the woods, and as he's running through the woods, he's going to make a grunt here and there. Just make grunt, and then make a grunt, and then make a grunt, and then make a grunt. And he may do it, you know, 6-8 times as he's chasing a deer. So you can employ these tactics to give you an advantage. I think the most effective call is just the good old grunt. 1 or 2 of them, and then put it down and wait. Now, don't make the mistake of grunting and then, oh, I ain't seen something in 5 minutes. Oh, there's nothing coming. So what a lot of deer will do is they will grunt, and when you grunt, they hear you. And this is especially true if you're going to blind call. Try not to overdo it. I am testing right now a theory in the woods about calling too much. So I'm going to confirm that with you if you can call too much, right? We'll test that out this season. The buck I shot, I actually called quite a bit, and he came right in. My theory is if you call too much, the big boy won't come in, but I don't have any data to support that. And I've read quite a few studies that says that that's bullcrap, and you should be very aggressive with your calling. So we'll see. But there's a couple things I do want to say. You can call, and if you think that you weren't heard, the thing I would have to say about calling frequently and not sticking to like at least a, you know, every 15-minute or every 20 or 30-minute regime is that oftentimes what deer will do is they will either come right in on you right away, or they will come in, they will hear you, and it will take them 4 or 5 minutes to get close to you. And I've especially seen the big bucks, the shooter bucks that I've managed to call in, they will often hear you, and within 20 minutes of calling you, they will pop in, they'll circle you, right? And they'll come in back behind you or downwind of you. I've seen that happen in the woods when I've been hunting. When I would hit a call and I would be set up with real thick woodland behind me, and the buck would come in behind me. investigating that call. In fact, that happened to me with the buck I shot. I was calling and he came in right smack behind me, and we had a 5-minute stare down. So that's one thing you need to be very aware of when you are using these. One, the deer will tend to circle downwind or back behind where the noise came from to investigate. And this is when that urine, the buck urine, can play in your favor. If you're going to be calling, I do like to drop some buck urine at the stand, because I've seen it happen now multiple times where a buck that was worth shooting would actually circle downwind to try to catch a whiff of the buck. Second thing is if you're gonna call, you should have your stand, if you're calling for bucks, I feel like your stand should be buttoned up against some pretty thick, be in a very thick area or backed up against really thick area, because I feel like oftentimes the bucks that don't come running in, the bucks that, the bigger bucks, they tend to circle. Be very careful about immediately encroaching in the area, and they'll come in looking, okay? All right, let's get into the final tools in the toolkit. This one, rattle bag. I'm not sure that I like this. I have used this. I have called in bucks with this before. I've never called a big buck in with this particular tool, but I have called in bucks. I have 2 tips for you. One, you will see people on YouTube or in the woods just really get into this really loud, and I don't feel that's nearly as effective of just real slow, you know, tickling of tines is what I would call this, you know. You do not have to get real heavy on this. I will say that when I've used these, I've had little bucks. I haven't had a big one come in on me yet, but I've had little ones come running in. So the other thing I gotta say to you is, if you're gonna do this, few seconds, do not go longer than a minute. If you're gonna do this, you know, I'd say 15, 20 seconds, maybe 30, should be good. Some folks will tell you, oh man, you know, rattle for 20 minutes. Spammers. Rattle for, you know, a couple minutes, or rattle for 6 seconds. I don't feel like you need to rattle a long time for this to be effective. And in fact, I feel like most bucks, at least during the pre-rut, I feel like most bucks, those fights gonna end shortly. I don't think we're at the time period where a 60-second or 120-second rattling is a good idea. Now, if we're full rut, sure. I mean, I don't know how the bucks fight here in Georgia, but I know where I'm from, you know, they can get pretty into it. So, again, my opinion, 15, 30 seconds, slow and soft, okay? Now, this, it does work. Again, I've never called in a big buck with it. I've only called in little ones. They come in and want to investigate. Just like the kids in the schoolyard want to go see the fight, deer are the same way. The last one, this is how I prefer to rattle. I learned this trick a few years ago. I think my dad showed me a video of it a long time ago. But if I'm going to rattle, and I will be rattling this weekend with these, a couple things you want to know about rattling. First off, I do not rattle like I call, okay? I will rattle maybe once or twice a hunt, that's it. And if I'm going to rattle, I prefer mornings over evenings, and I would rattle right at first light, or, you know, between first light, 8 a.m., the earlier the better. And maybe if it's a morning set, I might try rattling at 10:30 in the morning. So that'd be my 2 rattles. I like this for two reasons. First one is, I'm like 30 foot up off the ground. So I can drop this down the tree, down to about, you know, head height, and then I can just jiggle it. And I like that for two reasons. The first one is the sound is in the right location, okay? So when the deer comes running in, all right, he's gonna be coming towards the sound, which is at the base of the tree, not up 20, 30 foot. Second thing is, the second reason I like this is when I'm done rattling, I can just drop it on the ground and leave it there until I need it again. The third reason I really like this is I can take this and I can actually drop it on the ground. And I can rattle on the ground, and I can drag it on the ground, and, you know, do stuff like this, and it's going to make a bunch of noise in the leaves, so it's going to sound a lot more realistic, in my opinion. So 3 or 4 antlers, you know, they don't got to be nice antlers, but just 3 or 4 antlers, tie them all together, and try it. Take this in the stand with you, and you'll be surprised. So I'm going to wrap this up. You need to have a rope that's long enough to do this with. Maybe spray some buck urine on them. Yeah. Or rub maybe some orbital gland scent on them. Like, you can really make this very effective. And so that's it, just like that. And I'll carry it in just like that. So these will be going to the woods with me this weekend, because we're at the time where it's time to start tickling antlers. Now, I'm going to stress this again. It is not time to go ham on the antlers. In fact, I don't think you ever need to go ham on antlers. I feel like all you need to do is just tickle them. That's another reason I like this, because it keeps you from going ham on your antlers. It keeps you from slamming them together. Like, it's deer. We're not talking ram horns here. We're talking about deer. Deer do not like bang, you know. They're gonna come in and they're gonna real slowly, and then they're gonna lock up, and that's when they're gonna make the noise. But they're not gonna ever go, you know, real loud. So I feel like if you just tickle the tines, it's a lot more effective. All right. So that's it. That's today's video. Just going over some gear, and you guys get out there, have a great weekend hunting. May you find success. Maybe shoot that big old buck you've been after, or just any old deer if you're a meat hunter, and have a good time doing it. If this video helps you out, I would really appreciate it if you would take the time to give us a like, throw us a subscribe. Our channel is very young, and we are trying to grow it. And every subscribe, comment, like we get helps us grow and turn this into a reality. YouTube, for all it's worth, is a lot of work. We're going to be in there doing some self-filming this weekend. We're going to be after our buck as well. I'm probably going to mess that hunt up. Just because the self-filming aspect has really added a degree of challenge to hunting that I was not ready for. But it is a really good time. It's really fun. So I'm eager to get in there and mess it up. We'll put it that way. While we have you, I guess now would be a great time to give you an update on timber. And you'll have to excuse the studio. It's kind of a mess. We're still getting organized and putting stuff away, but Ash is behind the camera right now, and we're gonna pan over here to Miss Timber. We're gonna talk about her a little bit. So as you're all probably aware now, Timber is my daughter, along with Mars. I am a pet dad. Timber went on her first successful track, which was the buck that we shot, and she showed a real talent for tracking, and I am very excited about that. But a couple days, you know, we gave her a bath that same day and there was nothing wrong with her. And then a couple days later, Ash noticed a golf ball on the inside of her leg. So we took her down to the vet, and the vet had to say, he basically said, we think it's a fatty tissue, take her home. If it's worse than a week, call and schedule an appointment. Well, we took her home, you know, excited, thinking everything was going to be all right, and we would just have the fatty tissue removed. Well, it wasn't 2 days later, and that golf ball turned into the size of a softball. So then we got an appointment scheduled. We took her back to the vet. They performed surgery on her leg and determined that the tumor was embedded into her muscle on her leg. So the vet was not able to successfully remove all of it. The good news, we got some good news today, and the good news is the vet believes that this is a tissue cancer, not a bone cancer. If it ends up being a bone cancer, Timber will die. There is a 100% death rate, even with chemotherapy, in dogs that get bone cancer. Most of them don't make it a couple of months. If you amputate, it kind of increases their life to maybe 6 months, but most of them die. So that was some really good news. The bad news is, because of where the tumor's at and how deeply embedded it is, amputation is going to have to happen. So at this point, we're waiting on results back from the lab to find out what kind of cancer she has. And if she has a non-aggressive, low-stage cancer, the vet believes that removing her leg will save her life. If she has an aggressive cancer that has spread beyond her leg, we will probably lose her. So the family is going through a lot right now, and we are taking care of her. It's a pretty emotional time, but if you have some time to sit down and put in a good word with the Lord for us, we'd really appreciate it. I prayed to him today and asked him to take care of both my wife and Timber. And 45 minutes later, the vet called me and gave me some good news. So I don't know if you guys believe or not, but in my opinion, God is great, and here he is providing for us again. So Timber's not getting around too well right now. I've been having to carry her outside to use the bathroom. She did have a lot of energy when I got home from work, and it was really hard to get her to lay down. She's finally laid down for the evening. Have you given her pain meds yet? So she's gonna have to get her pain meds here pretty soon. But we're hoping that over the weekend she will recover, and we won't have any kind of infection. And then we'll get some answers here by middle of next week with the next steps. So y'all guys keep us in your thoughts and prayers. And if you're new to the channel, if you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed the content, again, help us grow by hitting the subscribe button, giving us a like, throw a comment on the channel telling us about what your plans are this weekend, what tools you use and what tips you have. We're both new to this, and I don't always give the best advice. I'm just giving you guys advice on what I've learned in my time in the woods. And as I develop new skills, I'll be sharing it right here with you. So until next time, guys, we'll see you later.
Looking up at the skyline, all the places and times that you went there. Why? Go a little further. Give a little love. Hmm.